So today we're talking about connecting ROAS, the meaning return on ad spend, for a marketing agency, as well as glasses, as well as augmented reality glasses. Welcome to the news. Stay to the end to find out how we get there. So we're talking about trying to raise and increase ad spend to be able to increase churn for the business, increase for Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios to increase awareness through not just music, where we're in essence trying to transpose a mindset connected to the essence of flowers and roses to the essence of ROAS, which corresponds to a return on ad spend, a connection to developing a high churn rate, which means a high dollar amount spent on continuous cash flow, which corresponds to ad spend, which corresponds to developing a connection with different people and other people's businesses to try to grow other people's businesses, focus on other people's businesses to try to make other people money. In an ideal sense, trying to focus on making other people money by being able to have asymmetric risk attempts to be able to attempt to grow, by being able to try to develop items such as similar to the connection between glass blowing and glasses. So like augmented reality glasses. So like a couple nights ago I talked about an art gallery in Hong Kong, which corresponds to the symbology of blowing glass blowing, which is a skill which corresponds to filling a gallery with pretty looking glass, which corresponds to something that has to do with glass regarding art as glass. So like this is a fictitious figurative gallery. It's a figurative gallery that exists in Hong Kong, and also corresponding to that is a marketing agency that corresponds to other people's businesses as a symbology to try to grow other people's their assets. In other words, their businesses, their circular flow of sales processes. And at the same time, we're trying to inspire other people to start new businesses as well by leveraging e-commerce education and having a foundational hopeful potential through a foundational place upon growing up in high school, for example, that corresponds to developing like a foundational root network for being able to develop e-commerce stores and having e-commerce sort of mentors attached and available to be able to try to develop a foundational community, which corresponds to ROAS, starting like to focus on ROAS so that in essence people can start to develop little businesses on the outskirts and the peripheries of Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios, so that we have sort of a fun little intertwined connect to be able to do ad spend and connect with them on ad spend and hopefully try to watch them grow, try to be something such as a marketing agency, but realistically a dot connector to be able to try to bring the right dots together to be able to develop growth, awareness, and also origination from stores and print-on-demand stores and stores that are in e-commerce land that have never existed before. Like also the potential to just sell something one-off on Amazon, for example, and draw awareness to have a link to go straight to Amazon to develop a purchase now action call for someone to take action straight away is as simple as the e-commerce store connection type of conception that we're trying to put together in Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios world land that we're trying to facilitate as we grow, go forward, if you will, to try to take steps to make other people money. We want to make other people money, to make our greater analogy, combining glasses and glass blowing, augmented reality glasses and glass blowing in today's podcast, to be able to develop a figurative figment that corresponds to wonky and wafty, waving worlds, a waving, wafty world that we're living in, basically, which corresponds to glass blowing, which corresponds to the excessive heat that corresponds to glass blowing, Pyrex glass blown art. That's very pretty, very beautiful. That after all corresponds to significant heat to develop new chemistry in this glass blowing process, which corresponds to a parallel universe. Maybe it's a joke. To using augmented reality glasses, leveraging augmented reality glasses to see through the other side of the spectrum in the electronic digital world, using glasses such as the meta glasses that correspond to, that have cameras and such things, but other augmented reality glasses and filters to be able to bring that connection to developing and blowing glass in real time and developing real-time art through augmented reality glasses is a full circle sort of approach and spectrum to developing ROAS like a rose, basically like growing ROAS from other existing products that never existed before by developing like sonic, like meaning music or whatever, which corresponds to not just making more music, but it also corresponds to making more products like glass blowing, and seeing through augmented reality glasses makes running an ad agency, like in essence, like getting inside of data, like actually trying to drive the car, because all businesses that are existing processes are like cars. They're basically like cars to begin with. Like, we're trying to grow cars into bigger cars. That's what a marketing agency does, to like spend many millions of dollars on ads to be able to grow engines from existing functioning processes that are yielding cash flow and yielding sales into larger operations, larger processes. And so we're trying to leverage that mentality of a scale of developing glass, of glass blowing, of blowing glass, changing the chemistry of a pretty piece of art, and developing a pretty piece of art such as a print-on-demand store, and developing e-commerce stores through a community of trying to focus on making other people money, not trying to focus on making us money, but trying to just develop more of a portfolio of making people money through a marketing agency mechanism and mechanic, which corresponds to the augmented reality glasses, combined with the glass blowing analogy from a couple nights ago, developing a glass blowing gallery in Hong Kong, if you will, as a symbol for the marketing agency in of itself at the same time, because it's also music making to try to bring awareness and bring in views and bring in attention to the Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios marketing agency, if you will, which also corresponds to like a DJ mascot for that marketing agency brand, to then therefore try to grow other people's brands and outward in an external way, try to give. So we're giving to other people's brands, and we're trying to bring in any way possible sort of the right tools and mechanics and mechanisms to be able to grow other people's businesses and other people's engines, thereby and therefore, so to speak. So it corresponds also similarly and simultaneously to where I grew up, more or less, to also have ROAS combined with the essence of a rose, because in essence ROAS means return on ad spend, because in essence, which we're trying to grow for other people, which in essence someone when next to where I grew up had a nice colony of flowers, which corresponds to the essence of origin and growth and developing flowers from the ground up for a colony of which were given to me back when I was growing up, in terms of yielding other people's flowers and being able to spread roses from the garden, if you will, to be able to have a way to try to furnish and take the seeds of those plants and those flowers to try to spread that into other people's gardens, if you will, as a symbology from back in the day, to try to transition that into the present day, to try to transition into the future, into a Hong Kong art gallery symbology, which corresponds to an analogy of glass blowing, to develop sonic art, to bring awareness to the art gallery in Hong Kong, to then thereby develop a marketing agency, which corresponds to augmented reality glasses, going inside the universe, going inside the mentality and the smelting process of glass blowing and the glass blowing process, going inside the heat, going inside the embers, going inside with your vision, with your visualization, through the augmented reality glasses, through the heat, through the extreme heat and the chemistry changing process of like an engine of growth happening of a growth engine being scaled up, and using a marketing agency as the mechanism, as the mechanic to scale up a business engine to scale that up into the universe, into the sky, into the world, to bring more awareness, more focus, more good deeds, more good awareness, more business attention and awareness to businesses, more processes, more other people's assets and brands, to try to develop and send good energy to them to grow other people's brands, give to other people, and develop an outlying external portfolio for other countries all across the world, every other country in the world, to be able to try to grow and give like plants, like flowers, to be able to develop ROAS, like roses, across the world, to spread and plant a new world, to develop the global philanthropy energy grid among all human beings, and then thereby the global good deeds economy. And that's all for now. Thanks again. Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios. Bye. Peace. Bye. And let's all remember to push for world peace every single day. Let's all remember to push for world peace every single day. Let's push for world peace every single day. And also, let's remember to try to clear the animal shelters. Let's clear all the animal shelters in the world. Let's clear all the animal shelters in the world, because we can foster all the shelter animals. We can adopt all the shelter animals in the world. We can rescue all the shelter animals in the world, and we can also hire the shelter animals as healers. We can also hire the shelter animals as healers all throughout the world, so that they don't have to be mistreated in animal shelters. And we can clear the animal shelters, and we can hire the shelter animals as healers throughout our communities. Hire the shelter animals as healers throughout our communities, because they also work for free, and they could use better purpose and use better jobs and be able to add value and be therapeutic energy for humans and humanity, to help us be more harmonious as humans and among humanity for all the animals in the world, to clear all the animal shelters, to try to get them to transition their energy in terms of therapeutic energy to all humans, so we can clear the animal shelters to add value to humanity in terms of harmony if possible. And let's push for world peace every single day and clear the animal shelters every day. That's all for now. Thanks again. Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios. Bye. Peace. Bye.